good evening, good afternoon, possibly good morning, maybe a combination of all three. Very nice to have you here with me on the, I was going to say sunny, but it's nighttime. It's 4:49 here. So welcome to the south coast of England. I'm Laura. If I've met you before, thanks for coming back. If I haven't, very nice to have you here with me. So we have got a busy hour ahead of us. Let's have a look at what we are looking at today. 1 second. Let me do some technical wizardry. Cool. All right. So the plan today is to look at the speaking. 1 second. We're going to be looking specifically at giving impressions. Okay, so we're going to be talking about giving impressions and really pushing your language skills. It says part 3. We're actually going to focus. I mean, everything that we're looking at today is going to be useful for all parts of your speaking, but specifically is going to be part 2 and part 3 focused, and I'll get to explaining the reasons why later in the hour. Okay, so I know that some of you are very familiar with the I'm just going to make this big. 1 sec. I know that quite a lot of you are very familiar with this lovely document. These are the speaking band descriptors. IELTS are very, very open about what you need to do and what you do not need to do well in the speaking exam. There's a reason that I go for 5 upwards, because most students are aiming 6, 6.5, 7, 7.5, 8 or higher. And what we're going to look at is going to be helping 3 of the main areas, really. It's going to be making your speaking sounds much more fluent and coherent, which obviously is a really important thing to do. But also it will boost your lexical resource. It will add to your vocabulary usage as well. And also, I think at higher levels, your vocabulary and your grammar are so interlinked anyway. So it's obviously going to boost your grammar too, because it's going to help you to be more accurate. It's all to do with structuring, organizing, and scaffolding your writing to have a really positive impression on the examiner. Okay, now, as I've said before, some of you are very, very familiar. You've taken the exam a number of times before. You know what you're looking at, but it's always good to have a revise. And for those of you that aren't so aware of the exam, that's no problem. We're just going to have a quick look at the way that the exam is ordered. So the first part 1, introduction and interview, kind of like a job interview, I guess. It's the closest thing that I can probably compare it to. It's quite straightforward questions, but as I keep saying, please don't give straightforward answers. The examiner is trying to push you. They want to see what you can do. So show them what you can do right from the word go. Okay. The more simple or basic the question appears, the more complex and sophisticated your answer should be in terms of length, grammar, and vocabulary as well. People are taking this exam with very, very different expectations in terms of grades. Some people want an 8.5, some people want a 5. The questions are the same for both types of people. The responses will obviously be very, very different for different people expecting different types of grade. The first thing you say matters. Okay, so don't look at this and think, oh, it's an easy question. Tell me about your hometown. It's a big town. I mean, that's not really going to get you very far. You need to push your language and you need to get straight in there with interesting detail. You need to be better than everybody else taking the exam that day, that week, perhaps that month. You need to impress right from the word go. Okay, Part 2 is the individual long term. This is a little bit different because you probably haven't been asked to talk on your own for just under 2 minutes about a subject that you haven't seen before. It's kind of like giving a presentation. That's the closest thing I can really compare it to, but then it's not because you haven't had time to prepare. You do get time in the exam to prepare. You get a minute, and we'll talk about what you should do with that minute later. But you have prompts here. You have 4 things that you need to include, and we are going to really focus on this today. Okay, how to organize your time and how to organize your language. I said it before, I will say it again. This is a language exam. To an extent, the examiner doesn't really care what you're saying. To be honest, they're more interested in how you are saying it. Okay, so remember, you've got to impress them with your language capabilities. You don't get marked for your ideas, but you do get marked how you say them. Worth thinking about. Okay, part 3, two-way discussion, perhaps a little bit more natural. If an exam is a place to talk about natural language anyway. It's when you talk to the examiner, you have quite a broad discussion. It is connected in means of topic to part 2. You can see here, this is about a possession. Part 3 is about people's values. I mean, it's quite a loose connection, but they do try and make some kind of connection between the 2 parts, part 2 and part 3. Whereas in part 1, you're asked to talk very specifically about yourself and your personal circumstances. In part 3, you are expected to make it slightly wider, to make some sort of observations about people, society in general, predictions for the future. Part 2 and part 3 are where you get to really push your limits of language. Okay? So, don't mess around. Get on with it as soon as you can, okay? And show them that you know what you're doing, because it's a confidence game as much as anything. You know, you want them to realize how well prepared you are. Okay? So, yeah, don't make them feel, is this person really in control of what they're doing? Are they really in control of their language? Prove to them right from the start that you are. I mean, this is an evidence-based exam. You know, make this big again so it's a bit clearer. You know, what they want to do is they want to just tick boxes. You know, these are the requirements. Can this candidate speak at length without a notable effort? Yeah. Can they use vocabulary flexibly? Yes, they can. You know, that's all they want to do. You need to help them to help you. Yeah, you need to give them a lot of language, and you need to give them a lot of scope. Okay, a lot of material to mark you on, because the more material they have to mark you on, the more they can notice and recognize positive features of your language. They want you to do well. Yeah, that's the trick here. They do want you to do well. Oh, my camera's having a bit of a moment. Okay, so doesn't matter. We can survive without it. Okay. Hi, Abdullah. Nice to have you here with me. I am here. It's just that my camera has decided to not. Here we go. Okay, it's okay. There we go. Back again. That was interesting for a few minutes. There we go. Well, to be honest with you, the slides are more important than than seeing me, but there we go. Excellent. All right. So what we're going to focus on, first of all, is we are going to look at this. 1 second. Let me do some technical wizardry here. Yes, I want to share my screen. There we go. And I want to share this one. Yes. Okay. So let's have a look at the task. My name's Laura Abdullah. Very nice to have you with me. Very good. Okie dokie. So on this very cold November evening. It's very nice to have you here. Okay. So I'm going to make this quite big actually, so you can see this. All right, so this is a really standard part 2 question, okay? Describe a city that you have visited. You should say where the city is, why you went there. Excuse my bad, that's terrible drawing. Why you went there and what you did there. And explain how you feel about this city. Now, not to be negative right from the start, but I think it's always good to highlight things that examiners don't particularly want to see. A lot of students, when they're planning their 2 minutes, they focus on the first 2 parts. Okay. You do have to mention all of the prompts here. You do have to cover all of these. But, very important, you don't have to spend an equal amount of time doing so. So, yes, you do have to, for example, here, you do have to talk about where the city is and why you went there. But don't use the full 2 minutes doing that and then suddenly not have enough time at the end to talk about what are really the more interesting parts of the conversation, possibly. So, yes, talk about everything, but organize and plan your 2 minutes well. Move on to talk about these 2. Explaining how you feel about a city is going to give you much more opportunity to use much more interesting language than saying where the city is. Now, even if your English is absolutely brilliant, how well can you show how good your language is by talking about the location of a place? Not really. So, yes, mention the first 2 parts, but make sure you have enough time to cover the later points as well. Okay, it's really important. So, you do have, it is a good situation. You do have a minute to plan. And I think you really do need to choose how you plan that time wisely. Okay, I'm just keeping an eye on the chat box. I'm going to go back in. We're going big again now. Ready? Here we go. Right. So yeah, do make sure that you don't miss out the more interesting points. Okay. As well, I mean, the subjects that you're asked to talk about, they are quite general. They have to be, because people are taking exactly the same, an identical exam all over the world. So I don't want to use the word sort of, they're not interesting, but they're very general. They are subjects that anyone should be able to say something about. I mean, anyone can talk about a city. Anyone can talk about their feelings about a city. So make sure that you do. So one thing that examiners are looking for, I mean, this is true in the writing and the speaking as well, is accuracy. To get those really, really good grades, most of your sentences, most of your phrases, yes, they need to have complex structures, but also the majority of them, if you look at the marking criteria, the majority of them have to be what is called error-free. That means with no mistakes. Okay, so that's the balancing act, isn't it? Showing that you have a very, very broad, very wide language awareness, but also, also that you are able to produce complex language in an accurate way. Prepositions are what we're going to be looking at for the next part of this hour. Little tip here. It's a good tip. Now, using the wrong preposition, it happens lots. It's a very, very common error. And you want to avoid all mistakes, but you really, really want to avoid mistakes that a lot of other people are making as well. Because when you're marking, trust me, when you're marking and the 20th person makes a mistake with a preposition or an article, it doesn't make you feel great. And if you don't feel great, yeah, that might be reflected in the mark that you're given by the writing or the speaking examiner. Always using the correct preposition, it really can make a massive difference to making your English sound so much more advanced. It's such a good thing to be able to do. Now I'm just going to zoom out again just so I can make sure that everyone is here. Yeah, good, brilliant. Okay. All right. So these are some lovely prepositions here. Very nice. Great. Here we go. Above, at, by, for, in, of, on, and with. What a wonderful selection of prepositions there. Okay. So this is very straightforward. All we're going to do is just look through and make sure that you are using the correct preposition in each sentence. Now, obviously, if you're watching this as a recording, which is totally great if you are, you can stop here, pause, and you can match the preposition to each sentence here. And then you can come back and you can see if your answers match mine, which is very exciting. If you're watching live, Brill, we'll do it together. Okay. All right. So like any gap fill, and this is, for a reading, the reading part, the listening part as well, always look after the gap. So many people don't. And look, 50% of the information that makes the sentence is before the gap. And the other 50% is after. So you wouldn't look at this part of the task without looking before. So make sure you do look before and after. Okay. All right. So, and I go wild with the colors. So, okay. So let's have a look here. A job interview, train, a shop, city centre, shoppers, streets, a large university, me. Great. So these, as we can see, are all objects or object pronoun, me. Fantastic. So let's have a look before the gap. I had to go there. I went. My friend lives in a second floor flat. Famous places are. Streets were full. Who live. My interview was. Do the full one here. Didn't have a map or phone, me. Okay. So I had to go there, a job interview. Hopefully, you used for. Yeah, did you? Marvelous. Yes. I had to go there for. I would try writing on the screen, but it just looks ridiculous when I try to do that. So I'm sure that you can read the lines here. So for, I had to go there for a job interview. So this is the reason why. Why did you go to London? Oh, I had to go there for a job interview. Okay. Now, I went train. I went train. Method of transport, by. I went by train. I went by car. I went by bus. By is the means of transportation. Okay. My friend lives in a second floor flat, a shop. Now, I don't know what it's like in the countries where you live, but in the UK, at street level, we call that the ground floor. So the first floor is actually above the ground floor. I know in the United States, on street level, it's called the first floor, but it's not like that in the UK. So it's the ground floor, first floor, second floor. So my friend lives in a second floor flat, a shop above a shop. Number 4, most of the famous places are the city centre. City centre, any kind of centre, in. Okay, in the city centre. Were full. The streets were full. Shoppers. Full of. Full of shoppers. Full of energy. Full of space. Full of. Right. Now, number 6. There are quite a lot of homeless people who live the streets. On. You live on the streets. Certainly in the UK, we do have a really significant problem with homeless people living on the streets. It's very sad. On my interview, so we're going back to number 1 here. My interview was at a large university. Oh dear. Number 8. I didn't have a map or my phone with me. I get lost sometimes, not in the moment because we're in lockdown and nobody can go anywhere, usual or unusual at the moment. But yeah, I certainly do get lost from time to time. And I'm so grateful when I do have my mobile phone with me. GPS is an amazing thing. Hi, Mohammed. Nice to have you with us here. Very good. Okay. So these are all prepositions that we use to do with towns, cities, and places. Okay. So let's think about prepositions of movement. Now, again, if you're watching this as a recording, absolutely brilliant, great. I will give you, just pause it here actually, and have as long as you like to decide which of the 2 options in italics is the best preposition for the sentence. Okay, so just have a stop now. If you're doing it live, I will time just 1 minute really quickly on my phone, so you will hear my lovely alarm go off. Let's just time 1 minute for you to have a really quick look at the sentences here, and then I'll go through the answers. Obviously, like I said, if you're recording, that's cool. Absolutely pause it, go through at your own speed, and then I will go through the answers. I'm just going to give you 1 minute now to have a look through very quickly. Okay, timing 1 minute on my phone. Okay, 30 seconds. 20. 10. 3, 2, 1. Okay. There's my lovely alarm. Thank you, Mr. Alarm. Great stuff. Okay. So, as I said, if you're pausing it, hi, Jazim. Nice to see you. Let's do some prepositions. Yeah. Okay. So, we're in Paris. Very nice. Let's have a look-see here. To get. Whoa. Paris. You have to drive a big concrete flyover. We will look at the sentences in a second. Fortunately, a big road goes the middle of the park. Okay. Takes at least an hour to get the town centre. You go 2 or 3 shopping centres. You have to go a short stretch of motorway. Okay. All right. So, before and after the gap, so important, isn't it? I said before, 50% of the information is going to be before and 50% is going to be afterwards. So we need to make sure that we are absolutely clear by looking at all the information we can when making a decision. Okay. So the best way to get around. Okay. So this is an expression we use, to get around. It doesn't just mean travel. It means basically to move around a place or a city. It's a good idea to hire a bicycle to get around. So it basically means to move from one location to another in a town or a city or the countryside. Right, a big concrete flyover. It's not the most beautiful thing I think I can imagine. It's like a road, which becomes a massive big bridge. So if we say it's like a bridge, then we say you have to drive over. You have to drive over a big concrete flyover to get to the city centre. So we've done 1 and we've done 2. All right, number 3. Unfortunately, a big road goes the middle of the park. Now, the important thing to look at here is the middle. We can't really go around the middle, so we say goes through. A big road goes through the middle of the park. It takes at least an hour to get the town centre by car at peak times. Get across. Now here we're talking about the town centre, but I often think of this as going from one side of a river to the other, or one side to the other of a road. So get across means that you start at one side and you need to go to the other. You're not stopping in the middle. It means that it's like an obstacle. It's something that's in your way. So we want to start out in one part outside the town centre. We need to travel through the town centre in order to get to another part of the town centre. Okay, so we use the expression to get across. Now, number 5, oh, I haven't done my ticking here. It's no good. There we go. So number 5, 2 or 3 shopping centres on the way to the airport. So we really need to think here about the context of the sentence. You go past or around 2 or 3 shopping centres on the way to the airport. Now, if you're on the way to the airport, you're probably going to be in a car, maybe a bus, or perhaps a train or the underground. So the best fit here is go past, because you're probably going to be traveling in a straight line. Yeah? You know, you need to think about it logically. If you're traveling by train or by car or by bus, you're going to be on a road which is taking you in a straight direction. You're not going to stop at the shopping centres. You're not going to drive around them. You're almost going to ignore them, actually. You're going to go straight past because you're going to an end location. You have your end destination of the airport, which is going to take you to another destination. So still talking about going to the airport. Number 6, you have to go past or along a short stretch of motorway to reach the airport. All about the airport. You have to go along. You have to go along a short stretch of motorway to reach the airport. Okay. All right. Good. They're a big problem for everyone, Jazim. Don't worry. They are hard. I think as well, like, don't think, I mean, I know that I've showed you like this blue block here of prepositions, yeah? But the reason I'm doing that is because I don't want you to think of them in isolation. Think of what, we use the word collocate. What do they go with? My interview was at. I didn't have my phone with me. So don't try and think of them and memorize them on their own, because it's so difficult because they have so many different uses, yeah? Try and think of them in terms of adding something to a sentence or a phrase or an expression, memorizing the phrase and expression and using it. It is, I do completely understand. And that's why if you get it right, it looks so good. Examiners really, really like it, okay? Because so many people can't and so many people don't. Okay. So think of the prepositions of movement as well. Get around a city, drive over a flyover, something goes through the middle of a park, an hour to get across the town centre, go past these shopping centres, you have to go along a short stretch of motorway. Okay? All right. Good job. Okay. So let's have a move on. I feel your pain though. I do. I do. I know. It's hard. Okay. So let's have a good think here about structuring. I'm a bit obsessed with structuring. Organization. I'm quite an organized and structured person. I think that's why. Whoa, that wasn't organized or structured, Laura. Let's try again. All right, so let's have a think about some advice here. That's better. My drawing with a mouse, it's not good. There we go. That's made it much clearer for you, hasn't it? Okay. So sometimes I think it's really beneficial to think of your speaking in kind of the same way that you think about and approach your writing tasks. Part 2, the 2 minutes that you're talking on your own. It really should have a clear structure with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Now, I mentioned this right at the start, if you were here for this, when we were looking at the task itself. You really need to avoid talking for way too long about the beginning and middle sections of the task. Yes, you need to make all your points, but you need to make all of them. Okay? So, of course, you need to talk about the first one or two, but you've got to get a move on. Got to make sure that you do all the parts of the task. Otherwise, it looks really not very good. The examiner, ideally, should have to stop you because you're talking so much. Now, the advice here is to practice preparing and delivering part 2 with a clock in front of you. I think you can do that, but just use your phone. Just record yourself for 2 minutes. It's interesting because you get to feel what it's like to talk about something for 2 minutes, which is, it's not easy. Aim for just under, don't go over, but just work out what it feels like to talk about 4 different parts of a topic in 2 minutes. And this is really important. I know that we've mentioned it before, but let's just do it again. It should cover all of the points on the card, but you don't have to divide your time equally. Yeah? So yes, you do need to, like, we're going back right up to the top here. Excuse me 1 second. You need to mention all of these, but you don't need to spend exactly 30 seconds or whatever on each part. Get going, get moving, talk about them and move on to talk about the more interesting parts later on the task card. Okay. So, describing your impressions. You're often asked how you feel about something. It doesn't necessarily mean a feeling. Are you happy? Are you sad? It's what you believe, your perception, your understanding of a place or of a current situation. Okay, so I'm just looking back to the chat box here. Okay, it's fine, good. So it's a very, very good strategy indeed to differentiate, between facts and your personal impressions. Okay? Yes, you need to use facts. I mean, you can't say about the location of somewhere, oh, I feel it's in the south of the country. Either is or isn't. You can't just you can't talk about feelings there. But it's more to do with other things as well. It's what your opinion is. And talking about your impressions can demonstrate your ability to use spoken English for really complex purposes. And also, it gives you the opportunities in the exam, which we really need you to do, to use a very wide range of language. Okay, so let's have a look at some really good ways of talking about what we believe, what we feel about cities. I've made it super big. So again, if you are watching this as a recording, that's great. It's a good idea to pause here, and then you can answer the questions or try and answer the questions yourself, and then I will go through the answers with you. If you're watching it live, I'll just give you a very quick minute. I don't know why this minute is going to be quicker than normal. I'm going to give you a quick minute now for you to have a very quick look, similar to the practice exercise before. two options, which one's best? Okay, 1 minute. Okay, 20 seconds. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. My alarm's going to go now. Yeah, lovely. That's a nice, relaxing sound for me. And everyone else who has an iPhone alarm exactly just like that, which is lovely. Okay, so let's have a look at the options here. It's a sad city in some ways. We need to choose between seems and views. We will go through the answers in a moment. The historic centre looks or appears to have been totally taken over by tourists. Okay. It seemed to me, or my opinion, the public transport system really needs improving. Number 4, I got the view or the impression that there's always lots going on for people of all ages. Number 5, I imagine, or I'm imagining, that not many people live in the city centre. Number 6. Oh, excuse me. I've guessed, or I'd guess, that most of the people you see working in the centre have commuted in from the suburbs. Number 7, the overall or the total impression I make or have is that most of the people who live there don't go into the centre very often. You get feelings or the feeling that it must be quite difficult to live there. Okay, so those are the options. Let's have a look at the answers. So the first one, it seems a sad city. Seems followed by a. It seems a good idea. It seems a bad idea. It seems a nice day. It seems a nice place. It seems a sad city. It seems a. We're not sure. Okay. We're just telling the person who is listening or who is reading that this is what our belief is. The historic centre appears. The historic centre appears to have been totally taken over by tourists. This is really useful for your essay writing as well. Yeah. It appears to have been the government's plan to, etc., etc., etc. So these little expressions that come up when you're reading or when you're doing tasks like this, store them and use them. Really, really helps. Okay, number 3. It seemed to me, or it seemed to my opinion, that the public transport system really needs improving. It seemed to me. Okay. Number 4. I got the view or impression that there's always lots going on for people of all ages. I got the impression. Yeah, I got the impression there's always a lot to do. Now, number 5. Use the present simple here. I imagine that, and here, it's not many people live in the city centre. Imagining is not generally used in the continuous. Use a simple form of it. Okay. Number 6. What sounds better here? I'd guessed that most of the people you see working in the centre. What sounds better? I agree. I'd guess. Sounds much better to me as well. The D is a contraction of would. I think it's fine to use would here as well. I would guess. Or I'd. Both are absolutely fine. I like this one. Just so you know. The overall impression, I forgot this one. I have. Forgot to put it in yellow. The overall impression I have is that most of the people who live there don't go into the centre very often. Okay. And number 8. Again, what sounds better, or even what looks better here? You get the feelings, or you get the feeling that it must be quite difficult to live there. You get the feeling. So it's singular. It's kind of like the idea. You could use the idea, actually. You know, you get the feeling, you get the idea that it must be quite difficult to live there. Okay, so really interesting short expressions here. I mean, you don't need to limit these to talking about towns and cities. These are very, very good language for speculation. Okay, so when you're trying to, thank you, Ali Abdullah. You know, you don't need to limit these to talking about place. All right. They're really useful when you're speculating on all sorts of things. And as we said before, it's so impressive to an examiner that you have the ability to do that because it's a really natural sounding thing to do. Okay. Maybe you can think about it in your own language. I mean, I talk about things all the time that I'm not remotely expert about, especially to do with the news. You know, I love giving my opinion. It's just my opinion. You know, I have no authority, and I imagine it's going to be a big problem. Well, you know, I don't know. I'm not some kind of advisor, but these are really, really useful expressions to say we know it's not fact, but we're saying it because it's what we understand and what we believe. Okay. So it's fine, absolutely fine to give your opinions, but obviously you need to combine. You do need to combine facts and opinions. It's not going to be a particularly satisfactory answer. If you spend your whole time just giving facts and you don't say what your thoughts are, but equally just giving your thoughts and not providing facts is not really going to help you. So it needs to be a balance of fact and opinion. So we've got 7 sentences here. As before, if you're watching this as a recording, thank you very much. This is a good time for you to pause and to look at the sentences and to work through them and decide if you think that they are talking about a fact or an opinion. If you're here with me live, I will give you a very quick minute to have a look, and then we will come back together. Is it a fact or an opinion? Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Thank you, Mr. Timer. All right. We should probably look at the first two actually and just side by side, shouldn't we? It's the best city in the world. Is that an opinion or a fact? Oh, let's do some color coding, shall we? Let's go. Get very exciting. Let's make a fact yellow and an opinion green. Okay. Wow, the graphics. So it's the best city in the world. What's that? A fact or an opinion? Absolutely right. It's an opinion. Everybody has their own ideas about which cities are great and which cities are not. It's the best city. And sometimes they're like votes, aren't there? What's the best place to live and where's not the worst place to live? But it is an opinion. It's the biggest city, however, is a fact. So it's to do with, when they say biggest city, I mean, that could be, in terms of population is generally how it's calculated, isn't it? I understand that the biggest city in the world is Tokyo. And I think it has been for quite a long time, which I always find quite surprising, actually. But apparently it is Tokyo because Tokyo is basically a group of a number of cities all grouped together. So there we go. The biggest city in the world is very much a fact. Now, the next 5, where it's a little bit less straightforward, I would say. I've calculated that there are 10 different ways I could get to work each morning. Is this a fact or an opinion? Now, for me, it's yellow, it's a fact. To calculate means that this person has done their research, doesn't it? They haven't just thought instantly, oh, I don't know, how many ways to get to work? 10. They haven't done that. They've actually sat or stood, I don't know, and they've actually measured and thought about how many different ways there are to get to work each morning. So this seems to be a fact. Now, I've calculated does sound that there's some kind of method. The next one is much more relaxed. I reckon. Doesn't mean that I've sat there with my phone and my calculator and a map and I haven't given it that much thought. I reckon just means I guess, basically. So if somebody says to you, how do you go to work? I go to work by train. Do you? Is train the only option? Oh, I don't know. Well, I reckon there must be 10 different ways. This doesn't indicate that the person has put a lot of thought into it. So I reckon basically means I guess. It's a little bit more subtle, the difference between 3 and 4, rather than 1 and 2. Now this is the same, I believe. So I believe here, I'm using this as a fact. I believe a new bridge is going to be built soon. This is my understanding of the situation. And I've come to this understanding, I believe, is actually quite firm, quite a strong way of saying that this, I understand, is going to happen. So someone's saying, well, the traffic in this city is a mess. Yeah, but I believe a new bridge is going to be built soon. So we're using it as a fact because it's quite, like I said, it's quite strong. And number 6, I expect a new bridge is going to be built soon. Not as strong. This is a maybe. Well, I don't know. I expect a new bridge is going to be built soon. We're not really placing a lot of sort of belief in this. That might happen, might not. I don't know. Expect so. Could do, might not do. So I expect a new bridge is going to be built soon is what I take to be the situation. Believe is much stronger. Believe is because maybe we have evidence, we have thought about it. It seems to be something that we've heard or we've read or we've understood from a valid source. And I suppose is kind of the same here. I suppose a new bridge is going to be built soon. Again, I guess so. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. So there are different ways of talking how certain we are about something. So I said believe is actually a fact because we take it to be a fact. To say that we believe something is strong. Yeah? So the other two, well, everything in green is just something that we feel. There's no real evidence for it. Okay. So the last thing we're going to look at is this here. So I'm just going to whiz right back to the top. Excuse me if this is making you dizzy. I do apologize. So this is the task, isn't it? Describe the city you visited. You should say where the city is, why you went there, what you did there, and explain how you felt, right? We're going down again. Now it's like being in a lift. Here we go. All right. So these here, these 8 are kind of suggestions, okay? Some of them I think are more recommended that you include than others. So let's think, which 4 of these topics do you think are the best to include in this answer? I'll just go through them with you a bit now, okay? The location of the city, yes, I would, because you'll ask where it is, but don't spend overly long doing it. Your reason for traveling to the city, yes. Your journey to the city, I would leave. Don't waste time talking about the bus from the airport. What happened to you when you were in the city? Maybe, but again, don't spend too much time on it, only if it's connected to the tasks, definitely. The history of the city, I would mention this, maybe not, but very briefly if you do. Descriptions of the people you met in the city. This could influence how you felt about it because a city isn't just about its buildings, is it? It's about the feel of the place, the people, the environment. Your impressions of the city, absolutely yes. This gets 2 ticks. Definitely. On your return from the city, no. Don't do that. You're not being asked about it. You don't have time. You've got 2 minutes to talk about it. Make it count. In fact, always make it count. You've got 2 minutes. It can be a long time to show the examiner exactly what you could do. Thanks very much for being with me. Take care. Have a good evening. See you next time. Bye-bye.